Welcome to Parvasi TV and Parvasi Radio. We have a very special guest with me in our studio, Andrea Horwath. Of course, you don't need to tell much about her. She's a well-known name in our community also. She's leader of the opposition. She's leader of NDP Ontario. And one more good thing is that she has been recently once again elected as the leader of NDP in Ontario, and with very strong mandate. So we are going to talk to her on a lot of important issues. So Andrea, first of all, congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We had a very fun convention, even though it was all online. We still enjoyed it.
How was it? Was different than the last time?
Well, but the biggest difference is you can't meet people. You can't kind of spend time with people. So you lose that personal contact, and having to give a big speech to a little camera is hard to do.
Yeah, but this was another experience for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we are very close to the election time now.
Yeah.
The first week of June we have elections in Ontario. So far, how well prepared is the team of NDP Ontario?
Well, I'm pretty proud of where we are right now. Our team is, not only do we have a significant number of our candidates already selected, we still have some to go, but we're not worried. We have a lot of really talented people willing to run for us and wanting to be our candidates, which is wonderful. But we really have... we have a team that's ready to go. I mean, we have 40 MPPs who are already elected. So we're not going to have the problem that, for example, let's say Stephen Del Duca might have, where he's only going to have 5 people that have even been in the legislature as MPPs. So they're going to be looking for the bathroom while we're ready to go. Yeah. But I'm making a bit of a joke there. But we do have 40 very experienced MPPs, and we have a very well-financed organization. We've got so many volunteers that we've been training for several years now. Our ridings are in really great shape in terms of supporting those candidates. And I think that what we have, most importantly, are the solutions that people need right now in Ontario. A party that's going to, fight for them every single day, that has been doing that for years now, but that will make the commitments and get the results on our healthcare system, for example, our education system, making life more affordable for people. These are important things that folks need to have addressed, especially after everything that's happened with COVID.
Okay. Last time it was predicted at one time that NDP may form the government. You couldn't form the government, of course, but you came very close to that. The kind of mandate, strong mandate you got. Many of your elected MPPs were first time in the House. They must have learned a lot during these last 4 years. They are again candidates, of course. So converting from close to majority into majority, it's going to be a big challenge this time again for you. So how well you are prepared for that?
Well, I can tell you that I'm probably more prepared than any of the other leaders, because I've been around the longest. Some people say you've been the leader for so long, but what that's given me is a lot of understanding of Ontario, the people who live in this province. I talk to folks from every part of Ontario. I most importantly listen to people from every part of Ontario, and so I call it the team with the steam, because we do have 40 MPPs that are very experienced now, and can hit the road or hit the ground running, I guess is the best way to say it. Hit the ground running if we're given the opportunity to govern this province. They have experience, but they also have, they represent all parts of the province: suburban Ontario, urban Ontario, northern Ontario, southwestern Ontario, Eastern Ontario. We really do have every kind of riding, rural Ontario, and that's what's important, because you have to govern for all the people, and so we're pretty excited about that. And I think the other thing is that people people are looking for a government that's going to solve the problems, and they had 15 years with the Liberals, and they were disappointed. They brought us hallway medicine. Nobody knows that better than the people in
Brampton.
In Brampton,
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knows better than the people in Brampton. But they also sold off Hydro One. They allowed the cost of housing to start skyrocketing even a couple of years ago. And so I think people are still looking for something different. And with Doug Ford, he's made some pretty bad choices, and he's made some pretty big cuts. And people are feeling like they need the basics taken care of. Like, we need to take care of the basics, and we can. And I think that's going to help us very much so, because those very basics are the things that New Democrats fight for all the time. And so those are the kinds of solutions that we're going to bring forward. The exact kind of solutions that Ontario needs right now. Hopefully coming out of this pandemic and getting ready not only to rebuild, but you hear phrases like rebuild better, but what we're talking about is really taking care of the things that COVID uncovered. Lots of us knew that long-term care was in crisis,
Yes.
but it was uncovered in a big way during COVID. Lots of us knew that schools needed repairs.
Yeah.
$15.9 billion in repair backlogs. I think COVID showed how bad the ventilation is in our schools. Our hospital system, the lack of healthcare staff, basically running our healthcare system on a thread because of the lack of staffing and lack of beds. And so these things can be addressed, and they're very much the things that we're looking to fix.
Okay, we have seen popularity of Mr. Ford has gone down during the pandemic. Out of these 4 years' time during this government, 50% time we have seen this pandemic was the biggest challenge we were facing, and you have rightly pointed out so many shortcomings in the system which we have noticed now, which are facing now. Coming back to Brampton,
Sure.
you got 3 MPPs from Brampton. One couldn't. One came very close to the win. So NDP has a very strong ground in Brampton area, but unfortunately, keeping in mind the health system over there, which is the topmost priority now, we have seen the present CEO and president of William Osler, Dr. Naveed Mohammed, he has been fired or removed. We don't know. So one after one, we have crisis in Brampton. Instead of solving those issues or those problems, we are getting more problems day by day. So we don't see any light at the end of the tunnel in Brampton, at least.
And I have to say, it was shocking when the current government, Doug Ford, made the announcement about Peel Memorial that wasn't adequate. So the idea that so Brampton Civic, as we know, from the day it opened, was overcrowded. Like literally from the day it opened, it was overcrowded. Peel Memorial was supposed to be converted into a full hospital,
Yeah.
but the Liberals promised, never happened. Then Doug Ford promised it was going to be a full hospital. And then he went backwards on that promise. So he's not promising, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beds that are necessary, not the acute care beds. He's not committed to that, nor is he committed to the emergency ward. The crisis has been growing since the day Brampton Civic opened. So we need to make Peel Memorial into a full service hospital, including emergency room and acute care beds. And even then, it's not going to give enough beds
Yes.
per population that what Brampton should be getting, which is what the city council put a motion forward on that. I think they're calling for 825 more beds.
More beds, yeah.
All right, 825 more, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, but I think
That's the need of the hour right now.
Right now.
Yes.
And so what we've committed to is absolutely the full conversion of Peel Memorial, like should have been done years ago, as well as immediately getting to work on a third standalone hospital. Yeah, I come from Hamilton. I don't even think our population is as big as Brampton's population, and we have many hospitals.
And it's still growing.
And absolutely, it's still growing, fastest growing, one of the fastest growing communities in the entire country.
Okay, second issue related to Brampton, I would say, because we are focusing right now on Brampton,
Sure.
is the housing. Okay, so lots of students are coming and settling down in Brampton. Most of the immigrants coming from that part of subcontinent, they're settling in Brampton. We don't have any accommodation available there.
Yeah.
So prices are skyrocketing now.
Yeah.
Anybody who is the first time home buyer cannot even dream of to buy any accommodation, any property in Brampton or in Peel. And that is the situation in overall in GTA I can see now, and that's also going to happen in other parts of around GTA. So where it will stop?
It's already happening all over the GTA, and it's happening all over Ontario.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's so frustrating is that the people with the deepest pockets, some of the biggest money, is coming in and buying up homes, not to live in, not even to rent out, as assets, like as as investments. And
Purely
so then
investment.
I've been talking to a couple of real estate agents actually in the last little while who've said that it's heartbreaking for them. They have a listing, they have some folks come through and look at the property, and then over 100, 150 bids come in, and the highest bid is always a corporation, and it's not an everyday family that wants that home. And so we have to get that.
The real end user.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to get the speculation out, and so we have some plans around that. In fact, we know housing is such an issue that we put our housing plan together over a year ago, and it includes things like speculation taxes, vacancy taxes, non-resident vacancy taxes, as well as vacancy taxes or speculation taxes rather for residents across the whole province. So if it's not the house you're living in and you're buying it for an investment, then you're going to get extra tax on that. But there's more than that. There's making sure that we are helping young people. I mean, young people have totally given up on the dream of ever owning their own home.
Yes.
It's terrible. Young people are deciding not to have children because they can't even afford to rent a space that's big enough for their family. So we are offering another program. It's the home ownership plan, and it's to help with with 10% of the down payment.
Okay.
So literally, it's like a shared equity loan. The government, NDP government, would give you 10% of your down payment. You don't have to pay it back until you sell the house. If you sell the house, then you have to pay that back. Or if you stop living in the house and you're going to rent it out for revenue, then you have to pay that back. But it's a plan to try to give people hope again, and that's another piece. The other thing I hear about in Brampton, and you touched on it in your question, is the number of young students that come, and they're in some cases horrifyingly exploited. I mean, exploited in terrifying ways. I mean, I've heard some really heartbreaking horror stories about what some of these kids end up having to do.
Suicide rate is increasing.
Terrible.
Yeah, and their mental health issues are there now. So we are facing many new challenges which we never thought of when we started bringing them in.
Absolutely.
So there is no government, not federal, not I would say the provincial or municipal, looking on these issues.
Yeah, well, we've got some plans for that too, and we have. So we've talked about home ownership and the private market, but I was reading in the paper the other day a quote from a builder, somebody in the building industry, who said, "We are never going to build housing that's like traditional affordable housing, because that's not what we do. We build housing as a business to make money,
for the profit."
And so God bless. I mean, that's what they do. That's great. We need that kind of housing, but we also need affordable housing, and that's where government has to step in. So our plan includes 69,000 affordable units, as well as 30,000 rather supportive units. So because we know that there are people who can't manage on their own mental health crises, in some cases addictions issues, sometimes physical capacity issues, physical disabilities. Those folks need help to stay housed, and so supportive housing as well. So these are some of the solutions, as well as engaging the other ministries, if you will. So there's Ministry of Municipal Affairs. Technically, it's supposed to be housing as well. Not much of the housing part goes on, but along with the ministries of education, along with skills development and colleges and universities, because the private universities and private colleges is often where people are heading. It's a very slack regulatory regime when it comes to those institutions. So let's do right by these young people that are coming here to pursue their dreams, and make sure that that those institutions are properly regulated, and that that the education that they're getting is of value to them.
Yes, so that's provincial jurisdiction.
Yeah, 100% it
The
is.
province
Absolutely.
has to act on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so last thing which is again very important is small scale businesses. You
Yeah.
have been advocate for them for a long time. We didn't see much support from the provincial government, though the federal government was helping a lot with various kind of fundings and loans, but Ford government didn't do anything enough for them.
No.
And now they have started from today. We have heard that $10,000 grant will be, but that will be available to some specific businesses. Whereas those who are really struggling, restriction after restrictions. So the moment they come on, they're coming on track. Again, there is a restriction.
Yeah.
Again, they're struggling.
Yeah.
So anything in your mind, how you're going to help them?
Well, you're correct. We've said for some time that the Ford government needs to step up and support our small businesses. Instead, they were favoring the big box stores. If you recall, the big box stores were getting, any customer at any time could come into a big box store, no restrictions. But the small businesses were the ones that got hit hard with restrictions. And so the government should have then stepped up. You're correct in identifying the new grant program is upon us, but it has nothing to do with the actual businesses. So it could be a business with with 20 staff that can get $10,000, or maybe a business with with 2 staff that can get $10,000. A business that has $20,000 a month rent costs, or one that has $1,500 a month rent costs. Well, probably you wouldn't find a place for $1,500, but my point being, they didn't bother to put together a real plan that would help small business in whatever needs they had. So some of them it was rent. Some of them needing to augment the federal programs with wages. Some of them paying the utility bills. Some of them covering off the stock, for example, that in restaurants particularly where they had bought all kinds of stock that went bad and that needed to be replaced or replenished to reopen. So but they didn't do that. The government didn't do that, and so small businesses were either cut out of the eligibility, or they were told, you qualify, and then find out that, well, you have 2 or 3 businesses, only one qualifies. So you can only get a grant for one. Well, if you're an entrepreneur and you have 2, and lots of people are entrepreneurial who are in small business. Yeah. So you have to choose which of your businesses are going to benefit and which ones you might have to close up. People have lost their dreams during this pandemic. They've had to walk away from their dreams. The least we can do is try to shore them up and get them to the other side. Why? Because it's better for our economy, because they provide jobs, right? They provide jobs, they provide economic stimulus, they create they create a presence in our streets and in our neighborhoods. It's just so important. I want to say one last thing about all of this, because whether it was schools, whether it was small business, whether it was long-term care and home care, whether it was our hospitals, Doug Ford just didn't want to spend the money. And in fact, he received money from the federal government that he didn't spend during the pandemic. Now, that's not me saying that. That's the Financial Accountability Officer, who is somebody totally not biased. Apparently, he's about to announce a big reduction in the amount of the deficit that they were projecting. What that means is they didn't spend the money. So I think people
we needed most.
We needed it most, right? I mean, I think people understand that in a pandemic, you have to spend money to help people get through, and to help business get through, and to help our hospitals and our healthcare system get through. Doug Ford didn't want to do that, and I think we have suffered a great deal, and people have lost a great deal because of that kind of decision. There's a saying that says they know the cost of everything, but the value of nothing. And how do we look our seniors, our loved ones in the face? How do we look at those nurses, those PSWs, those frontline workers in grocery stores and elsewhere that couldn't get the PPE they needed from the government, that couldn't get the rapid tests they needed from the government to know if they were safe or not going back to work, couldn't get the paid sick days to take time off. We really, Doug Ford went through this pandemic on the cheap, and it caused a lot of pain unnecessarily for people. And I just think it's completely shameful and was the wrong decision.
Okay, we have seen you in the House, blunt, always you are firing and you're vocal, raising the issues, fighting for people. You are in the media, you are everywhere. But one thing which I want to ask you is that when it comes to form the government, people have some apprehension in their mind that how well NDP will do or you will do as the premier of this province. So how you want to change that that thought, which apprehension or whatever is there during this time in this election?
Well, I think it's clear that we have the capacity. We now have the experience, which we might not have had before. But we have 40 MPPs that know their way around, that know what they're doing, and that are smart. I mean, they're smart. They're smart people. They understand how the legislature works. They understand how the province works. And so I think that's an asset. I'm an experienced leader. I was last time too, but I still think that's an asset. But the other thing is, when we look at how NDP governments have done through the pandemic, one of the best performing was the British Columbia government.
Yeah.
They were an NDP government. At the beginning, they were a minority during the beginning of the pandemic, and then they received a majority during the pandemic. We look at other times in history when NDP governments have been in office in, for example, Manitoba for many years, in Saskatchewan for many years. It looks like the NDP is going to form government in Alberta again very soon.
Okay.
So I think there's... I get it that there's hesitation because we've only formed government once, and some people don't look kindly upon that history. But look, we've been under Liberal and Conservative rule for the vast majority of Ontario's history, and we still have a housing crisis, and we still have a hospital and healthcare crisis, and we still have a situation where our schools aren't where they need to be, where families struggle, where they can't afford to pay the basic bills, and I believe that we can do a lot better than what we've had for far too long in Ontario.
Okay, so that's the message for you from Andrea Horwath. She's saying that you have seen long time Liberal government's performances. You have seen now Doug Ford. So she's appealing to you that give one chance at least to NDP, and she'll deal all these issues which we are facing right now. So that's her message. You want to say anything at the end?
Just thank you, everyone, again, and thank you for really being responsible. We know that it's tough and that people are frustrated and they're tired, but hopefully we're near the end of this. We just got to hang on for a little bit longer, and I just want to say how much I appreciate everybody's effort to get through this virus.
Okay, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon again. We wish that we are out of this this mess which this pandemic has already created. We are trying to deal with that, but together we can do that, and soon we will be out of this. That's our belief is. So thank you, Andrea. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rupinder.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Parvasi Radio and Parvasi TV.